From WLWT, this is Let's Talk Cincy.
Artwork is at the core of Cincinnati's story of rebirth that's evident the moment you arrive downtown. Welcome to Let's Talk Cincy. I'm Curtis Fuller.
And I'm Alexis Rogers. We discovered one artist out of Walnut Hills who is breaking barriers from barbershops all the way to City Hall, bringing art to community spaces and the powerful stories behind them.
True freedom is when you're your authentic self. And when you're an authentic self, you don't know bondage.
The art of realness, that's what sets Ryan Leary's artwork apart. The story behind the story.
I think that's really what pushes my art. What narrative has been missed? What narrative is being obliterated? What narrative is not being actually told?
This Finneytown grad is no stranger to Cincinnati. Characters from Black Panther have even commissioned her work. It's the soul behind her pieces that seem to capture people's attention.
My tagline for my art is very simple. It's obnoxiously large and unapologetically Black. And the reason that I have that as that tagline is that I want people, whoever you are, to have a conversation. You're going to address my presence. You're not going to ignore it.
For Ryan, her art is not only a form of expression, but a community responsibility.
For me, having an art history degree, walking into different museums and institutions, seeing these large-scale paintings of these folks, of their stories, I'm like, well, where's ours?
A conversation or conversations. That's what Ryan wants, a space where people can confront, think, and talk. Ryan says Black-based art is being tucked away in an African wing or displayed only during Black History Month, and that's not enough.
We have to break that cycle. There is a breadth of expression within the African diaspora. It's nuances in all of our identities. Why do we keep trying to focus on one particular thing or put it in a box? The series I did was Melanated Gold. I wanted to do an exploration, kind of like, I have this concept when it comes to, unfortunately, to people of the African diaspora, especially in the West, that were hyper visibly invisible. So I started to think about, like, well, let's explore this idea of melanin. What is it about our skin color? You start learning all kinds of things.
Learning about history, about science, all through a painting or sculpture. It's a creative optic with a worthwhile story.
At one point during slavery, Black bodies were worth more than gold. So the idea of melanated gold is that we were in fact a resource, a mineral, a necessity of value, as long as we were under the service of others.
Her love for history and creativity spurred from an early age.
My parents never said no to me wanting to learn or explore. And I think that's so imperative for parents to understand. I was about 1 and I started drawing on the wall. Instead of taking me off the wall, they went and got butcher paper and put it on all the walls so I can keep drawing.
As she continued to create, she found importance of sharing her work, her process, in places and neighborhoods where art isn't easily accessible.
On Saturdays, I would literally, to get my mind and myself out of my own space, we'll go to the barbershop, set up an easel, set up paint, set up whatever, and just draw live right there. If I can draw in a barbershop or draw in a cafe, and it's gonna cause conversation, it's gonna lead to a child look over and peek. Or for me to pick up one of the babies saying, you wanna paint something? And have them do the background. They feel accomplished, they feel inspired. They're like, oh, this is something that I could do. So it's always about placing not only my work, but myself in spaces that's gonna engage conversation. And of course, again, celebrate.
Newly found lovers of art weren't the only ones captivated by Ryan's artwork. It recently caught the eye of Cincinnati Vice Mayor Chris Smitherman.
He stopped by one day, saw a piece, he said, I'm buying this from you. That was on Sunday. Tuesday morning, there was a check and a letter.
Ryan is that beacon that art is alive, that African-American artists are alive and living in Cincinnati, and I'm just inspired by her work.
I'm really, really excited to be able to have our presence in that building as well.
These stories are American stories, desperately needing to be told.
Ossie Davis said this in 1974. He said, any form of art is a form of power. It has impact, it can affect change. It not only moves us, it makes us move. How can we come together and collaborate and share those narratives? Where's the common ground? That would be the ideal utopia. And then everyone, is acknowledged and valued.
Ryan is so talented, and I think something really cool is that she actually got called by one of the actors from Black Panther to commission an art piece for him because he saw some of her sketches online. So I think that's awesome, and she really, really wants to make sure that people can teach kids at their local barbershops, and she says it's important to continue teaching that they can do it too.
Wow, that's impressive. You know, speaking of ability, showcasing the work of both emerging and seasoned artists with disabilities.
The local organization making sure their work gets noticed. Coming up on Let's Talk Cincy.
So you heard Ryan O'Leary talk about how art impacts change. I want you to see a gallery, Art Beyond Boundaries, and we've got the director, Jimmy Bolden, right here. And Art Beyond Boundaries really says it all. I mean, welcome, Jimmy.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So we should say you're a photographer.
Correct.
And you're the director of Art Beyond Boundaries.
Correct.
And it's connected with the Center for Independent Living Options. Tell me about the history of this gallery.
Well, the Center for Independent Living Options is our host organization, and in early or mid 2005, the then director Lynn Lang realized that in the arts community, not just the visual arts, but musical arts, concerts, sports even, there was a need or a lack of access to these events and opportunities for artists to exhibit their work that needed to be addressed. And out of that came the concept of Art Beyond Boundaries Gallery. It was intended to be a one-time exhibition, actually, in February of, December of 2005, and we were going to just put a show on in that following February for the Fine Arts Fund.
So here we are, over a decade and a half later.
One-time show turned into
a gallery, and it's a gallery for artists with disabilities to display their art and to sell their art.
Correct.
I love that. And so how does an artist, or let me ask you this, tell me about some of the artists. Then I want to ask you, how do artists get involved with Art Beyond Boundaries? But tell me about some of the artists first.
Some of the artists, well, we've had artists who have international credentials. For instance, Tom Shaw, Terry Corbin. Then there's Jimmy Jones. In our whole group of us that came through the 70s period, there's Gilbert Young, who's now in Atlanta, Robert Harris. Wow.
So I was going to say, you've had well-known artists and then some artists who aren't well-known.
Oh, yes.
And how do artists get involved?
Well, it's a simple application process. You bring your work, and if it makes the cut, it goes on the wall. And, the rest is history,
And how has Art Beyond Boundaries impacted change in the community and in the artists themselves?
Well, we've seen a lot of our artists go on to become, I should say, well-known or accomplished in other institutions and exhibiting throughout the region, as well as the nation, actually.
That's fantastic. So we have to encourage people to go down to Art Beyond Boundaries, 1410 Main Street in Over the Rhine.
Please,
just a beautiful place. Okay, so coming up next, we have a stylist who does not let disabilities get in the way of making women beautiful. You'll want to hear her story.
Welcome back, everyone. Fighting for your passion in the midst of adversity. It is a tough thing to do when you keep getting hit with roadblock after roadblock.
But one Cincinnati woman's grit not only inspired many, but caught the attention of millions.
I like when clients let me do a lot of different styles, like creative styles.
Tiara Daniels is in the business of making you the best you can be.
I've been doing braids. Well, my mom taught me how to braid when I was 4, so that's something that comes easy.
Not only does her infectious smile and creative ideas encourage her clients, it's her fight that has inspired millions of people from around the world right here in Cincinnati, Ohio.
What is there to lose? Just try it. You can't hurt.
Her journey started in 2007 after graduating from Hughes High School.
When I had my daughter in 2007, I had her July 14, 2007. So I remember New Year's Eve. I know she was sick, had been sick for a while. So I'm in there New Year's Eve thinking I'm gonna go to church afterwards. I'm like, wow, we're still here. And the doctors came in like, do you have anybody in your family got a heart condition? I'm like, no.
After x-raying Amaria's chest, doctors saw a shadow of her heart.
The next day they told me like she has 1 or 2 diseases. One we have a treatment for, the other one we don't. Well, the one that had the treatment was the one that my daughter had, and it was called Pompei's disease.
Daniels was told that Pompei's disease is genetic, a 1 in 45,000 chance where you'll meet someone where you're both carriers of that mutated gene that causes the disease. She was told there was a 25% chance your child could have it.
She passed away July 1st, 2009, 13 days before her 2nd birthday.
She started a foundation, Amaria Daniels Hearts to Pompe disease. Barbecues raise money for families going through the Pompe journey. In 2012, her focus shifted.
In January 2012, I started getting sick, which I thought was stomach issues because I couldn't eat or drink, and I just had stomach pains.
From stomach pains to gallbladder surgery, she kept having health problem after health problem. Doctors couldn't seem to pinpoint the exact issue. Thinking of Amaria, she continued to fight.
Once I got better, August 2012, I started hair school.
As her health fluctuated, she had to take breaks from school. She then went to the hospital again. This time was different.
They were like, we're gonna keep you because we think you have shingles, so we're gonna keep you. The second day I woke up, I was paralyzed from under my chest where the nerve pain was on down. And they did an MRI and said my entire spinal cord was swollen. They never seen anything like it.
That was the last time Daniels walked on her own. Now given a 50-50 chance of living, taking chemo and rehab for months, this fight was going to take more grit than ever before. She worked and worked and worked.
I met a guy yesterday who came to fix my chair, and he said he works on a farm and he uses his chair. He's in a wheelchair himself. My body mechanics is a lot better. Instead of my arms hurting from reaching up, I want them to know me as being a fighter and never giving up. I want them to know that she fought, she tried her hardest. No matter what happened in life, she tried her hardest, and I was always determined.
Her biggest fan is the one whose presence she feels in the midst of doing her passion.
I always think like, I'm still here. I'm still here for a reason. And I'm gonna try to make the best out of each day and take each moment at a time, not even day, take each moment at a time.
What an amazing story, and we definitely want to continue this conversation with Tiara as well. And she is joined with Jenna, her rehabilitation engineer and ergonomist. I learned something new today.
Yeah,
hey, there we go. How does it feel to even look at where you were and where are you now?
It's so surreal. Sometimes I still wonder, like, I can't believe I went through all of this, or how am I still going? Like, how am I able to get up every day despite like the pain I have? Like, a lot of people may not know, I still go through pain. I still have issues I'm dealing with when it comes to what my spinal cord did to my body.
Absolutely. And how did this relationship, because I know I was talking to Curtis a little bit about this, how did this relationship start?
Well, my physical therapist at Drake referred me to the opportunities for Ohioans with disabilities. She said that they could help me get back into work or help me with whatever supplies I may need, because I was at a stable place in my life, and I ended up going back to cosmetology school and finishing and getting my license. But I was like, how am I going to work in the salon if I'm not able to stand up? So she referred me to go down to, they call it OOD, and they pair me with Jenna.
Jenna, I would imagine, as most of us, we hear these stories, and as she said, how do you overcome this? And that's probably your role to tell her you will overcome this, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Our engineering firm, MJT Engineering, we work with different agencies, including OOD, to find solutions for people on the job. And sometimes they're custom designed products. In this case, Tiara and I met 2 years ago and visited a salon. We did an assessment of all the needs she might have as far as the workstation, her seating, accessibility of the building. And we worked with different vendors to have her actually trial some of this technology on the job, and to identify what would be best to kind of break down those barriers and allow her to do her job well.
Wow, that's impressive.
What's the part of this that people don't realize? I mean, obviously, people don't understand this unless they go through it or they know someone who goes through trying to regain their independence and do what they're passionate about. What are some things that you think that people should know?
I would say that it's hard. Every day is a struggle. Every day is something different. Every day is, you look back of how your life used to be and how independent you used to be, and now depending on people to do simplest things. Even though I'm progressing, I still have, sometimes I still sit back like, wow, I remember I used to go out with my friends all the time. Now it's not so much that anymore, because, I can't do some of the things that they are doing. So it's like my whole circle has kind of changed. My lifestyle has kind of changed. And I just want people to know that, I guess I just want people to know that just keep going. Just keep going. Just, you have to find a different route. Even though that it's not my life then, God is moving me forward to a different life that I'm not prepared. I may not know what's going to happen, but I'm just here for the journey.
It's good that we did this, because we did the original story, sadly, when you lost your daughter. And to see this journey is pretty amazing. So many people will remember that original story.
Well, thank you both so much for being here with us. And of course, we want to hear more about this amazing story about you in the future. And even now, so excited about it.
Making sure people with disabilities have options. Coming up on Let's Talk Cincy, we're talking with the folks from the Center for Independent Living on the programs helping folks live rewarding lives with pride and dignity.
Hello there and welcome back. A local nonprofit provides services for people with physical, sensory, cognitive, and psychological disabilities.
Yeah, it is a great organization, the Center for Independent Living Options, founded by folks who wanted a support system to help people with disabilities try to reach independence. And joining us today, Executive Director Rob Festenstein. Tell us about the center, some of the projects that it has, and how it is really helping people.
Thank you for having me. Our center is one of 12 independent living centers in the state of Ohio, and there are approximately 400 across the country. And we strive to serve people with all types of disabilities lead independent lives, to have no barriers, no obstacles to living as anyone else may, and to have meaningful and independent lives.
Absolutely. You know what I think is really cool about this is that you all are catering to a population that many don't understand all of the barriers in front of them. Let's talk about some of your key programs, especially when it comes to helping people live on their own, because that's already a hard feat itself. Every day I'm trying not to go and move over to Curtis's house. So, tell me how that works for you all.
Our goal is to have people live independently, to not be in institutions. And we run a wide variety of programs that help people with disabilities work, live, and maintain in the community. We run a permanent housing program. We run a youth transition program. We provide Americans with Disability Act compliance services. And we also provide a personal care attendant program both in Kentucky and in Ohio. And we will get involved in any way possible to help someone, whether it be a home modification, a reasonable accommodation, to do what they want to do with their lives.
Sometimes when you say disabilities, that term in and of itself it might imply to some less than. But I would imagine that you would say to folks, obviously that's not the case. What do you want people to know about folks who are living with disabilities?
I think the biggest thing to know is that a person with a disability, not all disabilities are visible. A person could have diabetes, a person could have ADHD, a person could have bipolar disorder. Those are all disabilities and present different types of opportunities for people with disabilities to maintain their lives. And I think many people don't understand that just because I can freely walk, that doesn't mean I don't have a disability.
Absolutely, especially for those that you cannot see. You know, I think about the people who have MS. I think about the people who have things, when you said cognitive, you know, these are life-changing things for not only the person going through it, but also their families. You all see that often as well?
Yes, and we work with the families to give them everything they need to help their family member or loved one. We used to run a program that provided ramps to people's houses. Sometimes people will find themselves requiring the use of a wheelchair, but yet their home is not wheelchair or ADA accessible. We did a very successful program with the Ohio Department of Medicaid to provide ramps to people. And that's working with families as well.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Rob, for joining us. Good information. Good information. Thanks for this, joining us for this edition of Let's Talk Cincy.
And of course, we want to hear from you. Join us on Let's Talk Cincy on WLWT.com on the Let's Talk Cincy tab. And you can also email us at ltc@WLWT.com. We'll see you soon.